Bibliophiles of the internet, today I'm here to share some books that have newly come to my shelves. We have not yet completed a full 3 months in 2024, and a fair amount of books have already come and gone into and from my life respectively, so I went through my little reading spreadsheet and I want to share a random selection of 10 of my newest books. Starting off strong, Tor's new SFF romance imprint Bramble very kindly sent me a galley of Can't Spell Treason Without T by Rebecca Thorne. This is one of those interesting cases we see happening more and more often where this was published as a queer indie romance first, then it was picked up by a traditional publisher, and now it will be officially repackaged and coming out in May. As I said, this is a sapphic romantasy about Reina and Chiante who just want to open the bookshop of their dreams and serve everyone tea. But Reina is one of the queen's private guards, and Chiante is a very powerful mage, so it's kind of hard for them to disentangle themselves from those things. But they do indeed reach a breaking point. They strike out on their own to find a place to settle down and start their business, and what follows is a cozy tale of mishaps, mysteries, royal temper tantrums, and two women discovering what they truly mean to each other. Because this was an indie romance to begin with, I had actually pre-ordered a digital copy of this book when it was first released, so it was already on my list to begin with, and I think it sounds really sweet. I'm pretty sure this next book is one I picked up when Barnes & Noble was having their huge 50% off sale at the beginning of the year, so when I saw this exclusive edition on sale, I knew I had to finally get it, and that is The World We Make by N.K. Jemisin. If you don't know this about me, I've read every single novel and piece of long-form work that N.K. Jemisin has ever published, except for this. So this has to be the year I fix that. Generally speaking, this series gives off huge Sense8 vibes. The basic concept is that every major city in the world has a soul, and that soul is represented by human avatars. In this case, New York City actually has multiple souls representing each of the boroughs. Basically, there's a terrible ancient evil surfacing in New York City, and so her avatars are awakening and coming into their powers, and they also have to rise up to protect their city from these evil forces. It's great. Next is a book I pre-ordered last year, and it sounds so freaking cool. That is The Principle of Moments by Esme Jakiemi Pearson. This is a complex adult sci-fantasy story told through vastly different timelines. I believe at least two of those timelines take place in 1812 and the year 6066. Some books you just can't actually sum up properly until you've read them yourself, which I feel like is absolutely the truth in this case. But according to the synopsis, the story takes the reader on a whirlwind adventure from a Regency-era love affair between a time traveler and the prince waiting for him in the past, to a rescue mission in the 60th century where a girl desperately races against time as she searches for her stolen sister. And if all of that doesn't make you sit up a bit in your seat, it's also queer. Next we have A Woman Is No Man by Etof Rum. Etof Rum is a Palestinian-American author. She's very renowned in the literary space. I read a short story from her a few months ago and really enjoyed it, and I've been wanting to dive into more of her backlist, and I know this is one of her most popular books. There seems to be this connective thematic tissue between all of her books where she really explores Palestinian womanhood and how that intersects with intimate family dynamics. This book is no exception to that. It's about an Arab family living in Brooklyn, and their 18-year-old daughter, Dea, is starting to meet with prospective suitors. She doesn't actually want to get married, but her grandparents are very insistent, and her mom went through a very similar thing years ago when she left Palestine herself. And while Dea was always told that her parents tragically died in a car accident, a secret note from a mysterious woman begins to make Dea question everything she was told about her past. I don't know about you, but my interest is piqued. And yes, I did just tap my head with the book. It was on purpose. Then, of course, the one and only Matthew Sharapa is my Knopf angel and kindly sent me a mailing of Martyr by Kaveh Akbar. Kaveh Akbar is an Iranian poet. His book, Calling a Wolf, is one of my favorite poetry collections, and I think this might be his first novel, but I'm not entirely confident, so do not quote me on that. I've been so excited for this ever since it was announced. It's about Cyrus, who is newly sober and an orphaned son of Iranian immigrants. He has this obsession with martyrs, which leads him to examine the mysteries of his own past, connecting him with his ancestors, but also leading him to a painting discovered in a Brooklyn art gallery that suggests his mother may not have been who he thought she was. I actually want to do a hybrid read with the audiobook because it's read by Aryan Moayed, aka Stewie from Succession. I just know deep in my bones that this book could very well change my life. Then we have another book I instantly pre-ordered months ago, and that is The Bullet Swallower by Elizabeth Gonzalez James. It's described as a magical realism Western story that's almost like a collision between Cormac McCarthy and Gabriel Garcia Marquez. Two absolutely wild names to put in one sentence. Part of the story is set set in 1895 following a Mexican bandido named Antonio Sonoro, whose town is suffering through a drought, and there's no money, there's no work. In his desperation, he hears about a train laden with gold passing through Houston, and he decides to try and steal it. Nearly a century later, we follow his descendant, Jaime, who is Mexico's most famous actor and singer. He discovers a book that holds the entirety of his family's history, going back to Cain and Abel, detailing all of the horrible sins his ancestors have committed that have ultimately brought him to his current success. Essentially, he realizes that he might have to pay for his ancestors' crimes unless he can discover what truly happened to his ancestor, Antonio. I am so psyched about this one, you have no idea. I love westerns told from marginalized perspectives. Some of my favorite books in recent years have fit that bill. Books like The Thousand Crimes of Ming Su and Lucky Red, and I think this is definitely going to follow in their footsteps. Almost too many buzzwords here to name: Mexican bandido, train heist gone wrong, a cosmic debt generations in the making. Sign me up. Then HarperCollins kindly sent me an arc of In Universes by Emmett North, which possibly comes out sometime in April 2024. This is written by a queer author. It's a multiverse story that follows a queer physicist's search for belonging across time and space. The story is about Rafi, who works in a lab where they study dark matter and conduct related research. But in their free time, Rafi likes to spend time with a queer sculptor named Britt, who fascinates them for reasons they can't or don't want to put into words. Rafi can't help but dream of a universe where Britt loves them back, and they ultimately end up going on this tour across parallel worlds alongside their sometimes friends, sometimes lovers, Britt, Kay, and Graham. But of course, with each new universe, reality gets progressively more and more strange. I do have to read this last part on the back because it convinced me to request this book. Part Ted Chiang, part Carmen Maria Machado, part Everything Everywhere All at Once, In Universes insists on the transgressive power of hope, even in the darkest of times. Next is a book I pre-ordered after hearing about it on TikTok from Lean, who I will link down below. That is the newly published Trinity of Fundamentals by Wissam Rafidi. This is independently published by 1804 Books. It is the English translation of a manuscript that Wissam wrote when he was actually imprisoned in a Zionist prison starting in 1993. The manuscript was actually confiscated by guards many times, but through collective cooperation with his fellow prisoners, he wrote down this story piece by piece, and they successfully smuggled it out of the prison, and this is the long-awaited publication of that manuscript. In this story that closely resembles Wissam's own experiences, we're following a 22-year-old Palestinian man named Kanan between 1982 and 1991, when he was hiding from the Israeli occupation of Palestine, and all the while, major political and historical transformations are happening all around him. It's about organizing and resistance, struggling against Zionist oppression, and exploring how love, revolution, and life are the trinity of fundamentals that pave Kanan's path and all of Palestinian people's lives, past and present. I must have done something right in my life because this next book was sent to me unsolicited, meaning I did not request it and no one reached out to formally offer it to me. But the universe stays conspiring because Simon & Schuster sent me a finished copy of Otherworldly by F.T. Lukens, also known as one of my most anticipated 2024 releases from one of my all-time favorite authors. I have loved all of F.T. Lukens' books, and this latest one I believe is a queer supernatural YA romance. It's about a teenager named Ellery who doesn't believe in the supernatural, but they also can't deny that their hometown has been somehow stuck in this winter that's lasted for 5 years. Our other main character is Nox, who is a familiar from the Otherworld, a magical assistant sent to help humans who have made crossroad bargains. But when he is pursued by some bloodthirsty crossroad demons, he runs into Ellery and begs them to strike a deal with him so he can be tethered to the human realm and escape the demons. I don't know anything else, and frankly I don't need to know anything else. I love a good magical bargain, I love a good queer romance, I love F.T. Lukens. I cannot wait to read this. It comes out on April 2nd. Lastly, and most recently, Del Rey continues to be very good to me because they kindly sent me a galley of The Seventh Veil of Salome by Silvia Moreno Garcia, which I believe comes out on July 16th. I believe this might be Sylvia's first ever purely historical novel. I don't think it has any supernatural, paranormal, or otherwise genre elements. It's set in 1950s Hollywood when every actress in the business is scrambling to play the role of a character named Salome in this big budget movie that could absolutely change someone's life. The director ends up casting an unknown Mexican actress named Vera Larios to play the part, and suddenly she's all anyone can talk about, and she's also become a prime target for some envious actresses. So it's about all the drama happening in Golden Age Hollywood, but it's also partially told from Salome's perspective as well. The story is billed as a sexy Technicolor saga, and especially knowing how well Sylvia does historical drama, I cannot wait. So those are just 10 books that have recently come across my shelves. I always try to get things on your radar that maybe you haven't heard about or have heard less about, so hopefully you're adding some of these books to your list, and I'd love to chat some more about any and all of them down below in the comments. Thank you so much for watching, and until next time, educate yourself, be kind to yourself, take care of yourself and others, and I will catch you on the flip side of the page.